Hey, welcome to another episode of Chad's Beer Reviews. Remember back in like June or July, I said, I'm going to clean out my cellar and start reviewing all these vintage beers. Well, I've hardly done any of them, but as I was saying, I want to clear out my cellar. This is one, I have no idea how I got this, when I got this, or anything like that. But this is Southern Tier's very old, if you remember this. They're Cuvée Series 3. Even using my Southern Tier goblet here. It's actually the chocolate goblet. Yeah, I cannot remember for the life of me when or where I got this bottle. I was just watching my review from February of 2011 when me and Kevin Burns reviewed Series 2. And we both said it was just big, huge, gigantic beer. And I think we each gave it like a 7 or something like that. I remember getting that for like half price at Brew Crew, but I can't remember when. Did I get this at the same time as that? I have no idea. That's a problem with when you have a cellar. It's like I should really, from now on, I got to write this stuff down. Anyways, on with the beer review. This is actually not my first time having this. I had this at a bottle share back in, I think it was in February, or maybe it was like last October. Either way, it's not my first time having this. But anyways, let's get a look at it here. As you can see, it's almost the same color as my shirt. It's like a garnet color, like Union. They call their color garnet. It's very, very close to maroon. Not quite as red as my sheets over there. Did not have... Actually, when I started pouring it, like, it had that sound, like when you pour flat beer, how it sounds. I was like, oh, shit, this thing went flat. Which can happen. Like, Ben Harris and I cracked open like a 2-year-old Russian River Consecration about a month ago, and it was completely flat. I mean, it still tasted great, but it was, totally flat. Anyways, it did have about maybe a finger of head, but as you can see, it's all died down now. I could smell it as soon as I opened it. It really does smell good. It's very, very barley wine. It's very dark fruits, just tons of it's like rum-soaked raisin, figs. Kind of similar to like how a Belgian quad smells. It has a distinct alcohol to it, and there's like kind of like a musty kind of cardboardy thing going, so it's probably oxidized. Oh, you can't see though. There's a little bit of crud on the where's that cap? Anyways, let's dig in here. Cheers. Yeah. Wow. Like I said, this is not my first time having it, and when I did have it at a bottle share a few months back, like I really wasn't impressed. But again, it was probably like the 15th beer of the day at that point. That's the one thing I like about bottle shares. It's just like almost any beer you have at a bottle share, it's like it's going to be way better if you just sit and have it by itself. But that's a subject for another sermon. Anyways, on with the beer. As soon as it hit my lips, I was like, wow, that really tastes good. It is very, very sweet. I get like a ton of apple on this one. It's very kind of cidery, almost kind of pumpkin-y, like that kind of pumpkin spice to it. Let me get another taste here. Yeah, it's like huge apple. And kind of what I said with the nose, very like raisin or dates, kind of like fig kind of flavor. Maybe like a touch of, well, maybe not so much chocolate as more of like toffee or caramel. A lot in that range. Whatever hops were in here have really dropped out. I would not really call this that bitter of a beer. Although it's not to the point where that it's like cloying and unbalanced, which ironically enough, when Kevin and I reviewed the Series 2, like relatively fresh, maybe that was like a year old at the time, we were just like, oh my god, it's just so thick and sticky and cloying. And that one actually had hops to it. This one, not so much. Big toffee. I am getting the kind of cardboard, kind of like mostly in the finish, like a little bit of oxidation there. Just like it's like cardboard, kind of metallic-y. I mentioned this in the last, like when I did the Browns Imperial Stout a couple months ago. That went from being an awesome beer to a very mediocre one. This one's really held up. It's not, I would not call this like a world-class beer. I don't really think I gained much by aging it. I think this beer, I bet you this was bottled in 2010. It had to have been. Maybe 2011. I'm not sure. You know, I'm friends with some of the Southern Tier guys on Facebook. I'll ask them. But either way, this has got to be at least 3 years old, if not 4. It hasn't really... I mean... Well, I didn't have it fresh, so I can't really say what it's gained by aging it. I will say that the heat's off. It's really not... You know... Like, we said that on the Series 2 review. Like, it was just very, really hot. This one is not. It's much more calm and soft. Yeah, huge toffee notes. I keep searching from the hops. They're really not there. There's kind of like a bready flavor to this. You know what it kind of reminds me of is like a J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale. If you ever had one of those, like a really, really old one, the older they are, the sweeter they get just because the hops drop out. This kind of reminds me of that. It's, I mean, you could consider it American Strong Ale. You can consider it a barley wine. They're very, I think when it's fresh, it's a strong ale because the hops are still there. And then when it's vintage, it's more of a barley wine or even an old ale, really, since this is oak aged. I didn't even mention that at all. This is, Series 3. So, like, Series 1 was, big, huge beer that aged in, like, American oak barrels. They really didn't get into much more detail than that. Series 2 is aged in French oak barrels. And then Series 3 is a blend of the two beers. Let's see. Ale impressions. Dark amber color, rich caramel malt flavor, noticeable bitterness. Not so much anymore. Slightly sweet and roasty finish. No roastiness on here. Mild hop aroma. Oak impressions. Flavors of French and American oak. I don't really know. See, like, they don't go into detail. Were they wine barrels? Were they whiskey barrels? What kind of barrels? Or were they even barrels? They might just be staves or spirals, Impressions of vanilla, I agree with that. Toasted coconut and almond. I'm not sure I would agree with... I don't really get the nuttiness anymore. To me, it's just all confectionery. To me, it's a dried fruit, dark fruit. Definite, like, vanilla, very, like I said, confectionery. Huge toffee. Mouthfeel's become really flat. Has a little bit of like not a slickness to it, but it's just like, it's quite, it's almost like drinking like a brandy or a cognac at this point. Let's rate this on Rate Beer. Aroma, it actually smells really good. I'd probably give it like believe it or not, I give it a 9 out of 10 on aroma. Appearance, I gotta go, well, I love the color, but there's no head, no carbonation that you can see. That's typical. Technically, I can't really fault that. I will give it, let's say a 3 out of 5 on appearance. If it had really generated any head, it could go at least 4, if not 5. Taste, I think it tastes really good, although it's definitely oxidized a little bit by now, and it is a big beer. It's not nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on taste. It'd probably be closer to a 9 or a 10 fresh, maybe. I don't know. Palate, again, mouth feels very thin, flat at this point. I think it's fair too, because I am rating this as a vintage, not like as a new release. So It's like if you're gonna buy this, if you ever got this in a trade, or and they stopped making this years ago, but like this is kind of what to expect by now. Palate, which I always consider kind of like drinkability, mouthfeel. I think even a 3. Well, at this point the heat's dropped off, so it's actually quite drinkable. It does like a little bit of like it's almost like a cough medicine aftertaste. Kind of cloying, but it's not nearly as sticky as you would think. I'll give it be generous here. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 on palate. Overall, it's an impressive beer. I gotta say that. For a vintage, I will give it a say 6, 15 or 16 either way. 16, okay, that gives me a total score of 4 out of 5 on Rate Beer scale, which is an 8 out of 10 on my scale, and I would agree with that. It's a very good beer. It's a very impressive beer that it's held up after all these years. I mean, I wish the hops were still around, but the fact the alcohol has kind of dropped off, and it's still quite drinkable. I was actually really nervous going into this one because of remembering back to 3.5 years ago of just how I could barely finish a serving of it because it was such a huge beer. I'm actually not going to have any problem drinking this entire bottle myself. So yeah, there you go. 8 out of 10 from Chad's Beer Reviews for Southern Tier Oak Age Ale 𝗂𝐾𝐫 Series 3. So that does it for this episode. Sorry I went so long. If you stuck around to the end, you are awesome. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.